Very much. All right, we have 33 individuals signed up to speak this evening in our 1-hour courtesy hearing. So I will ask that you, if you can get to what you want to say in less than 3 minutes and save that time, that's an extra person that we can get to. So please be as concise as you can. I also normally would ask you in the front bench to move somewhere else so that we could get through people quicker, but there's nowhere else for you to move to. So I'm going to have you stay put, and we're going to try something different. I will call 5 names at a time, and if you could just line up in this aisle over here in the order that I called you to come right up to the microphone as soon as the person in front of you is done so that we can get through as many people in the time as possible. I will also ask, I know that this is an item, as we often have here, that people feel very passionately about, but I will ask you to hold your applause and anything else that will slow us down through this process. This is a safe place that people have different opinions, and it's important for us to hear from you on whatever side of this issue that you came here from. And so if you could please keep that. There is another room at 432 if you really feel compelled that you want to go cheer and clap when every speaker is done. You're more than welcome to watch on TV in there. But in here, we want to get through people as quickly as possible and also create a safe space for everyone to share how they feel. So I'm going to call the first 5. If Elizabeth Garfield, you can come right up to the microphone. And then in this aisle, if we can get Kevin Conroy, Derrick Martinez, Ann Elizabeth, and Amanda McDouglas, and Gale LaRue, if you can line up right here in this aisle and be ready to go. And Elizabeth Garfield, the microphone is yours.
Good evening. I'm Reverend Elizabeth Garfield. I'm one of the members of the clergy staff of St. Andrew's Episcopal Church at 20th and Glenarm in Council District 9. I am also a 20-plus year resident of Sunnyside in Council District 1 and a member of the Sunnyside United Neighbors. I stand before you tonight to speak in favor of Resolution 0367. This temporary housing is desperately needed in our city. As all of us are aware, we are experiencing a devastating crisis with regard to attainable housing in our city. And while much effort is being directed to this crisis, these efforts have not been able to keep pace with the magnitude of the deficiency in attainable housing. This is especially true with regard to individuals whose income is in the 0 to 30% AMI range. Too many of our neighbors are going without sufficient shelter and oftentimes lack even the merest resources to shield themselves from the dangers of violence and the ravages of the Colorado climate. This lack of safe, adequate, and secure shelter is resulting in enormous adverse health and environmental conditions for everyone in our city. These conditions are inhumane and dangerous and have resulted in significant loss of life. Last year alone, as we know, at least 233 people died as a result of lack of safe and secure shelter. This fact should outrage each of us and move us to positive action. As a person who's a leader in a faith community and a person of faith, we are committed to using our voices and our abilities to live into the commandment to love our neighbors and to care for those who go without access to basic necessities. This is not just a slogan to the faith community. It is a mandate to take action. You may be aware that St. Andrews worked diligently for over 2 years to gain the necessary approvals to locate a tiny house village on our property, to no avail. It has now been almost a year since the denial of our application by the Landmark Commission. I would like to say we no longer have the luxury as citizens of this city to claim this problem is too overwhelming, too complex, or too large. Lives depend on all of us engaging in new and creative ways to resolve this crisis. We need to pull together, to lean in, and come up with as many diverse shelter options as we can to stem the runaway growth of this epidemic. You, as the governing body of this city, have the ability to institute changes that can begin to turn the tide of suffering and despair. You can help those of us in the community who are working tirelessly to provide shelter for individuals.
I'm sorry, but your time is up.
Thank you.
Next up, Kevin Conroy.
Hello, thank you. I've been a resident of Global for 5 years. Before that, when I was in my 20s, I was homeless for quite a few years. I empathize with the people who are residents of the village at this time. That being said, I think you realistically look at the piece of land, this is not a viable solution. If you look at it on this side, you have what's basically a dead-end street with 8 houses on it. Down here, you have a railroad that freight trains go over, and on this side, you have a very tall chain link fence topped with razor wire. On the other end of that, there is a sloping 5+ foot drop to Washington Street. Our neighborhood does not have homeless resources. Our neighborhood does not have resources, period. We have no grocery store, no nothing. In order for these people to go anywhere, do anything, live their lives, they're going to have to go a block up north to the bus stop on 45th and Washington Street, and the only way to go there is to walk up that 500-foot stretch of Pearl Street with 8 houses on it. Now, you want to expand this to 20 sleeping units with 2 people in each unit, you're talking about adding 40 people to this dead-end street. You're going to more than double the population, okay? This is just a total failure of planning. This is not realistic. Even if everybody in the neighborhood was 100% on board with this, ready to go, this is just a recipe for unnecessary friction. This is not good for the beloved community village. This is not good for Glowville. This is not good, period. We need something much better. Thank you.
Could you state your name for the record?
Kevin Conroy.
Thank you very much. Next up, Derrick Martinez.
Yeah, my name is Derrick Martinez. I grew up in Glowville, lived there 31 years. Just like Councilman Espinoza was talking about I-70 being that project being forced upon that neighborhood, this tiny home village is being forced upon Glowville. We've been talking with a lot of different residents there, and now what I wanted to point out here is that if you look around the room, how many people here are from Glowville? The rest are here forcing this upon Glowville. I've grown up in Glowville, and my parents have worked hard their whole life to give me and my brother small little pleasures, only to have those stolen from us. I've grown up in Glowville and watched the SWAT teams go down my alley. I've grown up in Glowville and helped wrap neighbors from being shot. And what Glowville doesn't need is a tiny home village. What Glowville doesn't need was our rec center taken away. What Glowville was given was a playground for Stapleton Rec Center. And what the Highlands, Ashlands Glowville, Rec Center was given was a brand new indoor swimming pool. Glowville was given sidewalks on Washington Street, we're told. But was that for Glowville or for the National Western Stock Show? When they brought these tiny homes to us, they said, well, what does Glowville want? What do you guys need? Now you want to ask us what we want because you want to force something upon us. Tim Santos talked about a neighborhood plan. He said, well, we got this in your neighborhood plan. We got this in your neighborhood plan. I said, well, he said, the people of Glowville are asking for this and that. I said, did they ask for a tiny home? He said, no. I asked if they asked for porta potties placed in front of their street. He said, no. Now, I spoke with the tiny home village resident, and he told me a story. I'm not going to get into too many details for his privacy, but he was telling me that he was a felon. He was telling me that he's got caught up in drugs, alcohol, pimping. Would you want that in front of your house, in front of your children? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Ann Elizabeth.
First of all, I would like to thank the neighborhood of Glowville for everyone who's participated in this, and I hope that the city and the city council will thank the neighborhood of Glowville, which, regardless of which way this vote goes tonight, should be honored because this challenge has been visited upon this neighborhood, precipitating a conversation that should be citywide. And just like Glowville in their neighborhood plan being the first to respond to the deployed neighborhood planners, created something that benefited in template the entire push to get neighborhood plans. The conversation about how should a project be sensitive to a neighborhood, coming into a neighborhood, is being challenged by Globeville stepping up and saying, hey, there is a 360-degree sensitivity here. Everyone who knows me here in the Housing First movement knows I would stand at your shoulders for your dignity, no matter what your situations. And the same needs to be true for Globeville. One of the letters that was in here talked about how when in support, talked about how when they moved into the neighborhood, approximately 14 years ago, there were foreclosures and vacancies, and they were waiting for it to blossom. And I say to those that have stood up to try and challenge this to greater sensitivity in the neighborhood, most of these folks that have stood up with Globeville First and Globeville Cares are third and fourth generation families. And this is something that should be brought to the table. The animosities are part of the stress. We have the Denverite and the 2040 plan now that should create a framework for evaluating this as a citywide problem. We should not romanticize any one solution, and we should hold accountable the full relationships of how projects enter into a neighborhood, whether they're mission-driven, full-hearted nonprofit services, or return on investment developments. The establishment of the relationship in the neighborhood depends upon how the possibilities of relating to one another are brought. This lot was an aspirational lot for the residents of Globeville. There were many ideas about things that would enrich the neighborhood. I won't list them now. But we have to have a conversation about the impact of this. It is heartbreaking to be put in a position where a person feels that the aspirations of the neighborhood, if we protect them, could mean that people could lose their housing. Nobody wants to be in that position. Denver has brought upon itself a problem where we are, in a sense, fighting over scraps. We have to have things like tiny home villages, in my belief. We have to have many solutions, and we have to find a way not to pressure a neighborhood that is just reaching a threshold after serving and serving and serving the many diverse needs of finally reaching the benefits of what should arrive from all the changes that are coming, and it's still a fight.
Sorry, but your time is up. Could you state your name quickly for the record, please?
I'm Ann Elizabeth.
Thank you very much.
In Globeville.
Next up, Amanda McDougals.
Hi, my name is Amanda McDougall. Thank you for hearing us. I work for Bayout Enterprises as a site supervisor for a Denver Day Works crew, and I also used to live at Beloved Community Village. When I came here, I had just gotten out of a very abusive relationship which left me broken and with nothing. Through the people of Beloved Community, Interfaith Alliance, Bayard, and countless others, I found love, acceptance, guidance, so much more than just help. I found a community of people who helped to build me up. I've lived on the streets. I know how it feels to be invisible or even scorned simply because you have nowhere to go. The shelters were no better. Beloved Community Village is different. It's a real chance for us to do something that matters and to help ourselves at the same time. It's a place of love and healing. I personally have come so far because of my involvement with this community. As I said, I was destitute and alone in a new place when I ran from my abuser. Thankfully, God had a plan. 4 months or so after I arrived to Denver's streets, I was told of this tiny house village that was soon to be finished. What's more, there were still open houses. I, of course, applied and went to the interview. Finalists were told to be at the village on the 21st of July, 2017. That, for those unaware, was opening day. If you weren't there, you missed something special. That morning, I had been awakened by police and told I was trespassing. There were no signs, and the land appeared vacant, but I made no trouble and moved along. This really dampened my spirits, though. It isn't fun being awakened by police and treated like a criminal simply for having no place of your own to sleep. But then there I was at this big celebration. Here were all these people dressed in all different manners and from all different walks of life, all in solidarity around these issues of houselessness and lack of community. It was so beautiful. I was in tears for half the day. The first tears were of despair, hopelessness, pleading with God to help me. The rest, though, were filled with joy and hope. I was then pleading God just to let me be part of it all. I remember thinking, I don't even care if I get a house. I just want to be part of this. God heard me, and I did get a house that day. I got a place to lay my head, lock my door, rest, and feel safe. A place to leave my things and get cleaned up so I could go out and get documentation, get work, be productive again.
But beyond that, and far more important than that, is the community of amazing people who sprung up around me and built me up. The people who supported me and allowed me to support them. This community means so much to so many. Please vote yes.
Thank you. Next up is Gale LaRue, and I'm going to call the next five. If you could come up to the aisle here. Amanda Henderson, Rose Riley, Jennifer Wilson, Jazz LaRue, and Sue Gomez. Go ahead.
Hi, I am Gale LaRue, 30-year member of the original tiny home community. That community is Gloveville neighborhood, Northeast Denver. I'm here representing the 150 homeowners, renters, business owners, long-term family visitors, as well as our displaced Gloveville neighbors. I've met these through neighborhood meetings, basketball games at Stapleton Rec Center, and at their front doors. It's been a pleasure meeting new faces, as well as meeting old faces, community members that have been in the neighborhood for over 50 years who paid $8,000 for their homes. These 150 residents are not in support of the tiny home village move to Gloveville. We did meet 7 residents that do support the move. More importantly, of the question, do you support or not support the tiny home move to the Gloveville neighborhood, was the question, if you could have anything you wanted at 44th and Pearl, what would it be? Immediately faces lit up. Our neighbors thought, wow, I've never been asked, what do I want? I would like to share with you what could have been at 44th and Pearl if the city had asked. After all, the city has been sitting on that piece of land for 19 years. A park, a place for swap meets, farmers market, mobile library, food co-op, cafe, open space, coffee shop, senior building, flower shop, open community space, community garden, a park, educational outdoor space, a place where we could learn how to build our credit, a small pocket park, place for activities with families, outdoor market, dog park, Dairy Queen, pharmacy, trees, park, Taco Bell, Juegos para Niños, small Whole Foods, gym, childcare, mini shopping center, retention pond. We know that was you, Dave. Walgreens, permanent housing, a park, maybe sound barriers from the trains, a small post office, grass, and did I say a pocket park? We take care of our homeless community in Gloveville. We take care of each other. I have a very similar story as the prior person who spoke, and I was welcomed in Gloveville. I made myself to the rec center with my 2 young boys, and I introduced myself, and I made a home in Gloveville for over 30 years. And it's not easy, especially the dangers of the neighborhood. And I think Jill failed to mention that this piece of land is directly across the street from 8 families with very small children. We've gotten to know those children. We've gotten to know those families.
I'm very sorry, but your time is up.
Thank you.
Next up, Amanda Henderson.
Good evening. My name is Reverend Amanda Henderson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Interfaith Alliance of Colorado. And we were one of the founding groups who came together 3 years ago to start imagining a different way in the face of the criminalization of homelessness, and a different way in the face of the time that it takes to build housing. And so we brought people together from all different backgrounds and have pushed forward to this day, and it's been an incredible gift to be a part of and to see. As we initially sought out, we weren't just seeking to build housing or shelter or safety. We were seeking to build community, which is far harder than building housing. And we sought to reweave people together and into community while walking alongside one another. So these letters that I have here that you should have received are from residents of the village who were not able to be here, or it's too difficult to be here and hear these things after each meeting. So this is a letter from Luna Rain. Beloved Community Village for me has been my only chance at any sort of life worth living. A chance to get a job, a chance to heal, a chance to focus, a chance to be able to have the mental space to think about my life and where it's going and what I need to do to stand on my own. I came to Denver with nothing but a suitcase, a backpack, and the clothes I had on my back. I am not someone who has family or strong connections to help me when I need it. I was a domestic violence survivor on the run, and Denver was the only chance I had at survival. Beloved Community Village is my chance to make that survival happen. While this is far from luxury, I am afforded the space to be able to think seriously about my options in life. Because of my financial situation, there's still no way I can afford rent or sign a lease. The village is giving me the serious chance to work on all of this. Without family to lean on, there is no other option for me to survive aside from these tiny houses. There is no way I could keep a job, even retail, and stay long-term in any shelter. I tried, and I was saved by the village opening before, at the end of that week, I was going to have to choose between having a job and sleeping inside. The village isn't a ticket to an easy life. The village isn't a luxury. It's a chance to be responsible for myself, to create a life. The community in Beloved Community Village is very much a true title to me. As stated, without family, the village brings me a sense of belonging, and my neighbors have on multiple occasions been the difference to me between life and death. We create a chosen family of our own
but your time is
within the community.
Next up, Rose Riley. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Rosemarie Riley. This is my first chance or my first time speaking in front of you guys, so it might be kind of jittery. I would like to introduce myself. I am a member of Globeville First, also a member of Globeville Cares, a 50-year-plus resident of Globeville homeowner. My children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren live in Globeville. They own their own homes there as well. When this was presented to us, the way it was presented to us was not the right way. We didn't know this was coming until it was there. There was no community input. There was nothing for us. Here we are today. For 20 years, Globeville has been looking for something, someone to take note and to pay attention to the struggles that we have. Our rates are at least 28%, if not more, poverty, below poverty. We have 1,700 homes, and each one of those homes, most of those homes have children, 2 or 3 or 4, 5 children. Our people, the people that are here with us today are the people that took off from work. Most of the people in Globeville work 2 or 3 jobs just to survive. So when they came in, CVC, it was a slap in the face to our neighborhood. How dare you? We struggle. Yes, we have nothing against the tiny homes, just not where you want to put it, not across the street from families, not in a neighborhood. Of course, it did very well downtown. The only people downtown are the apartment dwellers. They don't have kids that play in the street. We do. We take care of ourselves. Am I angry? You bet I'm angry. But I'm not angry for the reasons that you might think. I'm angry because we've done without for 20 years. And what do we get? A tiny home village that gets everything just like the commercial, free, free, free. We have to pay for everything we get. Even the rec center that was given back to the community, we have to pay for. We don't get it for free. I've heard that council here wants to throw another $150,000 at this CVC. What do we get? Nothing, like usual.
Thank you. Next up, Jennifer Wilson.
Good evening. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Jennifer Wilson. I lead research at the Burn Center on Poverty and Homelessness, which is housed at the University of Denver. The Burn Center was hired in 2017 to conduct an evaluation of the beloved community village in its first year of operation. We're the ones who produced the report brief that you have on your desks. And the full report is available through the Barton Institute. The evaluation assessed villager outcomes and experiences, neighborhood perceptions, and neighborhood crime. During my brief time with you, I would like to focus on our neighborhood findings. Our team deliberately chose to survey a random sample of 20 residential households within a half-mile radius of the beloved community village. The significance of this is that according to fundamental research principles, by surveying a random selection of people, the results can then be generalized to the population at large. So in this case, theoretically, findings among a random sample of neighbors can be generalized to the rest of the non-surveyed residents of that neighborhood. Our research found that neighbors reported few, if any, challenges with beloved community village. When asked about the impact of the village in 4 distinct areas, which were traffic flow, safety, noise, and an overall sense of community, the vast majority of surveyed neighbors, nearly 80 to 90% in each case, reported that the presence of the village had either no impact or a positive impact on all 4 distinct areas. Reported perceptions of the village were largely neutral to positive as well. One neighbor said, "I like it more than an empty lot across from the RTD, having something there." Another observed, "I haven't felt unsafe walking as a woman. I feel safer because there are people in it who want to improve themselves and do more." And yet another stated, "They're good neighbors. They keep the weeds down. I see them coming and going to work." Neutral perceptions included comments like, "I've never heard anything. Even walking past, I never see anyone." Additionally, the Burn Center looked at 8 categories of crime data from the Denver Police Department in the areas immediately surrounding beloved community village, comparing the period from July to December 2017, which was the first 6 months of village operations, to the same time period 1 year prior. Visual inspection of map data illustrating the exact location, type, and frequency of reported offenses before and after construction of the village suggests that there were no increases in crime immediately surrounding the village. Rather, the number of reported offenses appears to decrease within a quarter mile of the village. Thus, we concluded and reported that there do not appear to be associations between increases in crime and the presence of the beloved community village. Together, the results of the random neighborhood sample as well as the local crime data demonstrate that beloved community village had either no impact or a positive impact on the neighborhood. These results directly contradict the NIMBY sentiment that often precedes the development of residence for people experiencing homelessness in a given neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Janice LaRue.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Janice LaRue. I'm a representative from Globeville First, Globeville Cares, and tonight I'm also representing UCAN, 3 Globeville RNOs. So the first question I really want to pose is, why do you suppose that no RNO has signed this Good Neighbor Agreement? There has to be a reason for that. If this beloved village was, as amazing as it's painted, then, we should be chomping at the bit to have this in our neighborhood. Unfortunately, as an RNO, we represent our community, and the people that we've talked to do not want this in Globeville. And that's why I'm here tonight. Jill Jennings showed, beautiful pictures. I'm sure those were taken when the village first opened during our due diligence as an RNO. That's not what those look like right now. There's tiny homes with spray paint on the side of them. There's tiny homes with what looks to be boarded up windows with a sign on the window that says toxic. Outside storage that's overflowing. As a father and a resident of Globeville for 28 years, this is what I don't want my daughter to grow up seeing. I want my daughter to grow up seeing a park. What she sees now, I-70, I-25, the homeless coming up from the Platte River, those are conversations that we have to have with her on a daily basis. And, our expectation of Denver is to bring beauty and to bring something more to Globeville. And unfortunately, this project isn't that. As an RNO, we also want to point out that there is no support network for people in transition in Globeville. There's no support. That forces us residents of Globeville to take care of each other. And that's what we've been doing for 50 plus years. We talked about the meetings with the neighborhood. what has that gotten us? Why are we here tonight if 3 meetings where we've said, no, we don't want this, we won't sign a neighborhood agreement? Why are we still here fighting this? You know, April 13th, we've been asking the city to help us clean our neighborhood for years. And now all of a sudden they want to come, you know, Denver swoops in with the CVC to clean that specific area and that specific block. That's more of a slap in the face to the residents of Globeville. That day, you know, the people I represent, they asked me, Jazz, why did they bring a model tiny home? Is this a done deal? Why would you bring that to that land and place that there? You know, to the residents of Globeville, that looked like, you know, saying, we're bringing this here no matter what you want. You know, and with this much pushback, you know, we've heard here tonight, one of the first speakers, they've offered Denver.
I'm sorry, but your time is up. Next, Sue Gomez, and I'm going to call the next 5. If you could come up to the aisle. Kelly, Pinella, Cole Chandler, Brenda Carrasco, Tobin Houser, and David Olesky. If you could come on up. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sue Gomez, and I live at 3554 North Marion. That's 2 blocks south of the tiny house village. And having lived there for almost 9 years, I've seen a lot of growth in that area, and also the growth of the beloved community village. I've been involved at the village since the construction began in various smaller ways of, you know, helping out with food to feed the workers during construction. And then I was also on the advisory committee and try to attend the potlucks that are held once a month. My involvement with the homeless individuals began back in 1986, and since that time I've been involved in various programs that were outreach or sheltering homeless people. And that included almost 7.5 years at the Catholic Worker House, where we all lived together, the homeless and the workers. The beloved community villagers have not caused a problem in our neighborhood. They've always been very open and friendly. When the village moved, 3 of them lived in our house for a few weeks during that move. If they stop by to visit, then we welcome them to our home, and they welcome us to their home. I believe that we as a community and the city need to do all we can to respond to the needs of our homeless brothers and sisters. We cannot exclude them from their basic rights of adequate food and adequate, safe housing. They are people just like everybody else. My own son was homeless in Oregon just last year. So I've experienced homelessness in various ways. And I just want to say in closing, thank you for your time and for your concern in this situation.
Thank you. Next up, Kelly Pinella.
Hi, I'm Kelly Pinella, and I'm a 10-year resident of Globeville. I would like just to see how many people currently live in Globeville in this room. And everybody else, all the white faces.
Did you make
I
sure
see
to talk into the microphone so everybody can hear?
Yes, all the sea of white faces that I see that want to replace the minority population that we have. I want to be clear, if this was an asset to a community, the village claims, you would all be fighting over who gets to have it in your neighborhood. You wouldn't have had to pay Michael Sapp with our tax dollars to whip up support rather than gauge it. The city sat on this land for 19 years, and as per the blueprint, is supposed to have a pocket park or similar benefit for Globeville. I just got my tax assessment the third time in recent years that it's gone up, and for this now we get a village of homeless people. Albus is fond of saying that billions are coming our way, and we are the G in ES. We are not GES. We are not getting stock show money. We don't see that. No one has ever had an answer. Denver isn't seeing the bigger picture on homeless villages. Seattle's most well-known village is now closing due to a 62% rise in crime, assaults, and property damage and theft. Beloved's had only 5 graduates in 2 years, 2 evicted with a police escort. The rest call it home and plan to stay. We've never heard from any of the men that reside in the village, only the same 2 women that are put in the front over and over again. One of the residents has been collecting cats, rats, and snakes. How is she going to transition into conventional housing? And Section 8 is a 6-year wait. So how is somebody who is allowed to just collect pets going to move into regular housing? I don't understand how they transition. And I'd love to have an answer to that, a real one. How many meetings do we have to insist that something positive rather than more indigent residents come into the neighborhood? We don't have the resources. Please don't put a 5th transient place in our neighborhood. There is a lot of stress and contention in an already strapped neighborhood, and if 300 passes, it will be a tent city from the village to I-25. Perfect for developers to swoop in and buy up the properties that will be sold. There are already 3 on the market just this past week that have been listed. To the other, my own home is located between 1 transient facility and 1 mental health clinic. I tried to meet with each council person. Paul Lopez refused several requests to meet with us. I suppose you have checked out now that you're running for another position and aren't worried about my safety or property values.
I'm sorry, but your time is up.
All right.
Next up, Cole Chandler.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. I'm Cole Chandler with the Colorado Village Collaborative, and I'm a resident of District 9. It's with gratitude and optimism that I address you all tonight. For years, our organization has worked to create and operate a tiny home village in partnership with people experiencing homelessness, and for years, we have requested that the City and County of Denver play a significant role as a partner in that effort. Over the last several months, the city has taken a courageous step in this direction, and we are grateful for these efforts. Our partnership with the city has deepened in recent months, and we are optimistic that these are the next steps in a long and successful partnership. Tonight, I would like to remind everyone that we are here because the beloved community village has been a success. If it hadn't been a success, we wouldn't be standing here tonight. In 18 months of operation, the village has offered safety, stability, community, and transformational housing to 19 unique people. 5 of those have now graduated from the village and moved into permanent housing. The DU study that was cited earlier showed that 11 of 12 residents were employed or enrolled in school, and that the village was supported by its surrounding neighborhood. In spite of the success that we now enjoy, this hasn't been the way it's always been. We should remember that this pilot project wasn't wildly popular in our current neighborhood at its outset. We had hard conversations in 5 Points, Cole, and Curtis Park to get where we are right now, to have several neighbors from those neighborhoods standing in the room with us. Tonight, I also want to express my gratitude and optimism for the Globeville community. We recognize that this process has been imperfect in every way and has ultimately placed 2 marginalized communities in conflict with one another. We lament this reality, and we lament our role in that. The housing and homelessness crisis is a citywide issue, and it affects every neighborhood. Globeville residents did not ask to shoulder the weight of this public conversation around tiny home villages and how they fit into our spectrum of affordable housing. But over the last several months, these neighbors sitting right here, without choosing to do so, have become fully engaged in this broader public dialogue. In the midst of this imperfect process, we're grateful and optimistic that we have found a way to work together to create some real improvements to our model that will lead to positive outcomes for village residents and for Globeville neighbors alike. These improvements are included in the Good Neighbor Agreement that was created through considerable neighborhood initiative and leadership. Thanks to input from Globeville neighbors, we made several important efforts to improve the process, which includes a formalized screening and intake process, clarification around the purpose and intent of the village, including the improving our transition plans for village residents. We've sought to make attainable housing available to those with connections to the Globeville community, and we'll be doing outreach for future houses for those folks. We want to share the resources that we have with village residents, and we want to work to bring a better lighting and vegetation plan, including community gardens and pocket parks on the site, which I think you have in the site plan. So we're grateful and optimistic tonight. Thank you.
Next up, Brenda Carrasco.
Okay, so I'm nervous. I want to start by talking about on October 24th, 2015, at Sustainability Park, we put up 7 tiny homes then that the city came in and destroyed that night. We did it on vacant land, trying to show the city a way to deal with homelessness. Cole just pointed out how he's built a strong relationship with you, and that's very important because I want to point out right now how the idea that the city hosting a homeless encampment in a community that we have no say what's happening to our community is just really startling. It's not moving the homeless out of the affluent new downtown, new Denver. People don't want to see that, and then shoving them into other areas. Criminalizing homelessness, that's not the way that's going to solve the way out of this problem. And I'm not even going to pretend 20 homes is a way to solve this problem either. But our community, we've dealt with the brunt of all the displacement we're going through. We've dealt with the brunt of dealing with this city's development, and we're tired. We're tired of it. We don't want this here. We need something that lifts our community. We don't need a glorified homeless camp sponsored by the city in our community. We have homelessness at the Platte River. We have homelessness in our neighborhoods. We need something that lifts us. I'm glad Cole has worked with you. If any of you would have bothered to come out, you would have seen 150 of us showing up at the center. These meetings right here placate, because let's not pretend those of us without social capital, those of us working 2 and 3 jobs can't get here either. I'm traumatized too. What is going on in our communities, all this gentrification, all this displacement, the hierarchy of needs, we come last. Over and over, us poor people in the poor neighborhoods keep coming last. We have no say. There's no accountability to us. We were not asked about what we wanted on that land. Even for 20 years, we've been trying to get something. Give us a store, give us childcare, give us something that lifts us. But we don't need what you are literally sweeping away. I'm watching right now, all along the Jesus Saves and Samaritan, y'all got tape up so nobody can even sit against it right now. But y'all want to sweep it into our neighborhoods. And somebody said we're just stabilizing. That's wrong. We have had 50, 60 years of strong, stable home ownership in that area. Homes that our grandparents have bought. Homes that we built, a community built, we built. When we had no place at your table, we had to set our own table. And now you're coming in and trying to force things onto us that we
I'm sorry,
don't
but your
have
time
a
is
say
up.
in it, and we don't want.
Next up, Tobin Houser.
Hi, my name's Tobin Houser, and I've lived in Globeville for 14 years. My property is about a block from the beloved community village property. Before I started looking for my house in 2005, I'd never even heard of the Globeville neighborhood, and nowadays it is my sincere hope that I will never need to live anywhere but the Globeville neighborhood. I've studied the history of the area. I know the hardship that people from Northside neighborhoods have gone through again and again. I can't join in with the Globeville First organization because I don't believe that stopping all projects in the area is a useful strategy for the future. Plus the fact that it would cause, if we said no to the beloved village, it would cause these people to go homeless, and that's just unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. I just want to go forward. I've always been acutely aware of the homeless in the area. About 4 years ago, I had to stop working because my MS worsened, and so from a life that I routinely lived 100-mile stretches in my vehicle each night at work, in the last 4 years has come down to about a 2-block area around my house. That's my whole world now. And even in this reduced area, the number of homeless is just so high. It's astonishing. People are living in so many buildings that were not meant to be lived in. I always cross my fingers and hope that we would make it through winters without anyone dying of exposure or burning up in a fire that they started to keep warm. I have often wished that the city would do better by its homeless. They've been pushing them off Cherry Creek and onto the Platte River so you can dump them in the north end of the city, out of the view of the rich. But then I got word that the beloved community village is coming to Globeville. Now, I had a completely different response than everybody else's. I thought, oh my God, this is great. This is finally a humane solution to this problem. And, you know, it's only a dozen or so people, but it's a start, and it's such a better solution than the sweep-offs that you guys do a couple of times a year to get everybody out of the way. And, you know, it's actually helping. It's got this, now it's got a record with the neighborhood that it's been in, and it actually improved that neighborhood. I've heard people talk about a lot of things like no more homeless shelters. This is not a homeless shelter. These are the same people going into the same house, will sleep in the same bed every night, not a homeless shelter. I don't want to live next to sex offenders. I got bad news for you guys. I've been living next to sex offenders since I lived in Globeville. That will just happen. We just live next to sex offenders sometimes.
I'm sorry, but your time is up. Next up, David Olesky. If you could please hold your applause so we can keep getting through people. David Olesky. I'm going to call the next 5 up to the aisle. Janice Eddy, John Olesky, Mike Keldson, Scott Kerr, and Marilyn Malagon. If you can come up and line up. Go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to start. My name is David Olesky, longtime resident of Globeville. But first I want to thank Paul Lopez for all of his years of service. And you're going to go on to great things, Paul. You know, you're a hard-working, honest man. Thank you for your service. You know, I've been in Globeville all of my life. My family's been there since 1870. And we never got involved in politics, but we all worked hard. And I finally threw my hat in the ring to run for city council for District 9 because I've had enough. All these residents have had enough. Albus has been in city council for 7-8 years. And he didn't do his due diligence to bring these tiny homes. All of a sudden, they're just here. And that's when I said enough is enough. You know, this has got to stop, and there's no way of stopping this. Now I'm going to ask you guys, did you do your due diligence to check out this tiny village organization? Have you looked at their books? Is this an honest organization, or is this a big money scam? In Seattle, they're doing the same thing with tiny homes, and they got 400 people working to write grants, get donors. Cole bragged how he had 600 donors already. How many you got now, Cole? 1,000?
If you could please comments towards us.
This is a lot of money, and they got 11 homes. You know, there's many different ways you can do this. This is just an example. They don't even know if this is going to work. Back during the days of the Depression, they had work farms. If they've got this kind of money, why don't they put up a work farm? You know, and do things that worked back then would work now. And this has just been too hard on all of us. It's too stressful. And what I'm going to ask you is if you're going to vote yes, you know, you're doing the wrong thing. You're going to vote no on these, you're going to do it right. But if you decide, maybe you ought to stop and do your due diligence and postpone this vote till after the election. You know, I don't believe this is completely about the tiny homes. I think this is about the election also. And I think, if anything, you should postpone the vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Janice Eddy.
It's Janice Eddy. Grrr.
I apologize.
I've lived in Globeville for 35 years, so I'm a newcomer. I live across the street from Dave. My mom died in Dave's uncle's rent house. My daughter was born in Globeville and went to Garden Place. I have a few prepared remarks. I support the beloved community relocation to 44th and Pearl Street. I feel Globeville is a pleasant and convenient neighborhood for people of all backgrounds. We have historically offered small impact housing possibilities for workers, retirees, families, immigrants, anyone who has a need and an eye to see what a hidden gem our community truly is. I love Globeville, and I love all my neighbors. So it saddens me that so much negativity has surrounded the issue of relocating the tiny home community here. Pride of ownership sometimes bumps up against distrust of change and distrust of city decision-making where Globeville is concerned. I understand that. I love Globeville's dead ends. I love its gritty mix of warehouses and rose bushes. For me, I much prefer dozens, if that's what it comes to, of tiny homes to high-rise infill, which I can see across the tracks. I foresee these proposed residents as impacting us not only positively, but minimally in the area of traffic, environmental footprint, and gentrification. I would welcome the new tiny home community members as vibrant and worthy Globeville neighbors, but I'm glad that we're all here, and I'm glad that we each have a voice, and none of us speaks for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, John Olesky.
Yeah, I'm John Olesky. I'm a member of a family that's been in Globeville since the late 1800s, and that I've seen a lot coming in there, and I've seen a lot that the city has not done for us. And then they come and try to drop this in on us there unexpectedly, and they're mad, and they should be. We're trying to better ourselves, and then the city comes in and says, here, you got that. This is not a Globeville problem. This is a Denver problem. It should be shared with Denver, all communities. Split it up, put it in all communities. Give it to Cherry Creek, Highlands, give it to everybody. Split them up, and you share it with this. Don't just dump it in one neighborhood. And one of the deals is, and just recently, I had to call the police department there, and that was on March 23rd about a car coming and tearing down a barricade in front of my house, which is at a dead-end street. I called the police. They came. We put a file in there, and the individual left their license plate in the barricade and all that. We thought it was great. I called 311. On the 27th, they gave me a reference number, and I didn't see any work done. I called again on 410, a reference number, still nothing. As of 5:30 tonight when I left, that barricade's still down, and that's the safety factor. City is ignoring us on the safety issues, and when it comes to this, they want to say, oh, here, you take the small village. And we're going to sneak it in on you. That's not right. I think this council needs to talk to each other and decide and get a better plan and share it with the city, not just Globeville. These individuals need help. Everybody needs help in one way or another. But you just don't dump it on a community that's been struggling and not getting any support from the city. And anytime I call 311 during the summer to get some weeds cut on city property, it takes a month to get it there. And then multiple calls. The city has ignored Globeville in that aspect. But when it comes to these individuals coming to put tiny homes in, oh, sure, come on in. And we'll sneak you in. That's not right. That's what I want you all to think about it and consider that this needs more thinking and more places to find better situations. Just don't dump it on Galeville. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Mike Helton.
Good evening. I'm Mike Helton. So I'm a local high school Spanish teacher. This is a little different than my usual audience, so bear with me. So about over a year ago, when we chose to buy our home in Globeville and become local residents, I understood the neighborhood as a neglected, polluted, literally divided with highways, a neighborhood that is now experiencing displacement. And I really wanted to understand that deeply and be a part of the solution. Apparently, we still remain divided in this issue. As a teacher, I come from a place of listening and trying to have some empathy. So one of the first things I did as I became active in the conversation was I toured the village, and I listened. I listened to the stories of a few of the people there, and just humans that were fearful of losing something that they've gained. I've also done a fair share of listening to opposing voices who've expressed anger and distrust, rightfully so, because of the history of the neighborhood, and also fear. But as I talk to my students about listening to facts. We heard some of the facts before, so I won't repeat them, but there has been success here, and there has been no major increase in crime. Nationally, with our social conversation, my heart kind of hurts with it. The conversation about who should be prioritized, who deserves it first, who comes first, who needs to be ranked. I fear this is fed by our national political climate, and I really feel like we should resist directing our anger in the wrong direction. I legitimize the anger in the neighborhood. I legitimize it, and I want to try to understand it. But for me, it's a false dichotomy to suggest that if we're compassionate and that we welcome and we extend, that it comes at the detriment of a neglected neighborhood. We should reject the binary choice of us versus them, and endeavor not only to refuse to accept the status quo for Globeville, demand relief from displacement and new services, the parks and the stores and the groceries that everybody has asked for, but also dare to listen and extend empathy and compassion to a worthy cause and a group of worthy individuals. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Scott Kerr.
Hi, my name is Scott Kerr, and I'm the director of the Employment and Opportunity Center at Bayout Enterprises. And Bayout has been doing economic development in the Denver metro area for over 50 years. And we've been involved with the tiny home village since its inception a number of years ago. We provide a number of services out at the village. We do benefit navigation. We help get folks hooked up to services like food assistance or Social Security disability insurance, A&D support, these sorts of things. We also do vocational development, we do job training, and we try to hire as many folks at the village as we can. And additionally, we offer laundry truck services. We go there once a week and do folks' laundry, including neighbors in the community when we're out there. And we also service the shower room. I just give you this a context to say that I've been in and out of this village pretty regularly for over the last 2 or 3 years. And I can say there are a lot easier ways to be homeless in Denver. We heard a lot about folks living along the river near Globeville. My experience with the residents at the tiny home village is folks are very motivated to make a difference in their lives and make a difference in their community, as evidenced by the outcomes that Cole shared earlier. They're also tremendously accountable. These are folks that are really committed to making their neighborhood a better place. They're going to get to know their neighbors, and hopefully, with the help of Bayout and others, they're going to work in their community. There's a lot of misconceptions about homelessness, and we heard a lot of them today about criminal histories and sexual offenders and drug use. You know, at Bayard, these are coworkers. These are low-income workers. These are low-income students who have raised their hand and say, enough, I want to make things better in my life. And that's what the Tiny Home Village is for, and that's why Bayard Enterprises is going to be there to support them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, Marilyn Malagon, and I'll ask the next 5 to step up into the aisle here. Tom Lures, Cesar Olivas, Laura Rosbert, Chairman Sekou, and John Hayden. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Marilyn Malagon, and I am a senior at the SST Cole High School. And one of my passions is actually architecture. I took an internship at an architecture firm last year, but today and currently this year, I am creating a project for the CVC program. I currently see the homelessness in my community. I live in the Cole community, and I constantly see the homeless population in Denver increase. And since Cole is right next to the Reno district, I constantly come into contact with the beloved community village. And that is how I heard of the BBC. And right now, currently, I am working on a project where I would design a more useful and more motivating design for the tiny homes. I see that currently, right now, the 11 formerly homeless individuals for the past 2 years have had a home and have not caused any trouble here. And I also see that in a flourishing area like the Reno district, they have only brought positive impacts onto the community. And as a student, I think the village is important because it become a bright place for achievement. I have seen villagers feel happy because of the village through my visitations with my mentor, Chandler. And for anyone that has fallen into homelessness, it is the best opportunity to have housing and create new beginnings for the bright future. This can also spark a great chain of tiny homes in our cities here in Denver, and it could also help across the nation. And I believe that it is important for the city council to vote yes to keeping the tiny home village up and running. The village has brought more positivity into our community, and if we can continue this, we can help more homeless get off the streets and into a real home. To me, the village is our best solution.
Thank you. Next up, Tom Lures.
My name is Tom Lures. I'm the executive director of St. Francis Center. And over the past 28 years, I've gotten to know thousands of people who have experienced homelessness but have not lived their whole life as people who are homeless. And it's pretty tough outliving a label, but if somebody's been in a home for a year, I would not refer to them as homeless anymore. And that's what the people who are in the tiny home village are showing us, or should be showing us, that they're not homeless people anymore. There's no reason to be afraid of them anymore because they are different. They are different people now, and fear to have that rule our lives is tough. And we see that a lot in many people's decision-making. But I would say that the people that are living in the tiny homes have proved to us, if they needed to, that they can be successful citizens of this community if given a chance. And probably most of us have looked for that opportunity in our lives to have a chance to succeed. None of us would be here today if the people who were looking at us decided that we weren't worthy, that we weren't acceptable, that there was something wrong with us. And I say, what we're saying to the people of the tiny home villages, please, is that you are acceptable in our community.
Thank you. Next up, Cesar Olivas. See anybody in line? All right, Laura Rosbert.
Good evening. I stand before you tonight in many of my roles as Deputy Director of the Dolores Project, as a clergywoman in the United Methodist Church, and as a citizen of Denver in favor of this resolution. I stand before you as the Deputy Director at the Dolores Project. We just last month opened up 35 units of permanent supportive housing with the help of this council. I sat there on the day our wait list opened and saw the line down the block. We had 35 apartments that took years to make happen. 2 years of writing service plans, designing them, getting approval for low-income housing tax credits, a loan from the Department of Housing, and vouchers from the Denver Housing Authority. Then we watched it be built week by week, digging dirt, pouring concrete, putting up framing. It took millions of dollars to make that happen, and what a gorgeous building it is. However, in the span of 5 minutes, those apartments were all rented, with a wait list of over 100 people just hoping to get an apartment. I know how much time it takes to build housing, and that's why I'm here. We in Denver need all the housing we can get in all the forms it can be. I am very proud to have been a part of building the Dolores apartments at Arroyo Village, but I also know that what we built isn't the right fit for everyone. And that's why Beloved Village is so crucial. It offers the housing that meets the needs of other individuals. Together, in partnership, we can create solutions. I also stand before you as a pastor, as someone who has a call to ensure that all of God's children have suitable housing that meets their needs and offers them dignity. As seen in the story of the Good Samaritan, a stranger cares for another, ensuring they are clothed, fed, and housed. It is one of the basic needs of all humanity. And as a clergy person, it is my call to ensure that people have access to meet their needs. We see that beautiful community and plan here. People coming together to find a dynamic solution to housing in our community. I also stand before you as a citizen of Denver. It is a responsibility of me, as a woman who has privilege and owns a house in this town, to ensure that all citizens of our city can meet their needs so that all can thrive. We know that the solution to homelessness is simple: suitable housing that meets the needs of the diversity of people in our city. This housing must be built in every single one of our neighborhoods. I am thankful to the village for their creativity in seeking to meet their needs, and believe that we should all come together to support this incredible effort in our city to find solutions to the affordable housing crisis in Denver. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are at the hour mark on our courtesy public hearing. We still do have about 10 people in the queue. So what I'd like to do is just give you 1 minute. If you're still in line, I apologize that we don't have time to keep going, but just to come up, introduce yourself, state whether you are in opposition or support so that we know who's here, and that council members can direct their questions to anybody who didn't get through the line in the hour. So if you can do that in a minute, we'll change the timer for that. That would be appreciated. Next up is Chairman Sekou.
John Hayden.
He's after Sekou.
Oh, man. Good job. This is exactly what I was waiting for. 1 minute. Here we go. I heard you. For real. And I heard y'all. For real. Now, what we got to do here is we got to blend both sides, see? Because no matter what, we cannot afford to have residents, taxpayers, and people trying to come up fighting each other. so that I can get through whatever it is my agenda is, because I'm not that important as your mayor. I'm not. See, this is all about you. Now you want this thing to roll. So we got to come together in accommodation, because it takes teamwork to make this dream work. So we can stop all of this bullshit now and come together and
Mr.
do
Sekou,
this
your
shit in
time
a
is
way
over.
that makes sense.
Could you state your name for the record, please? Could you state your name for the record, please?
Oh, my name is the Boogeyman. 1 minute.
Next up, John Hayden.
Hi, my name is John Hayden. I live at 2418 Champas Street in the 5 Points neighborhood, where we've had the current village for the last 3 years. And I would like to say that they have been fantastic neighbors, and I hope that you will support this resolution. I think that it's important to understand that every neighborhood should have a tiny home village, that the tiny home village is a benefit, not a detriment to the communities. People do best when they live in community, not in warehouses and not in tents on sidewalks. So please give these people community. Give them homes in your communities. It is unfortunate that this has come the way it has, but I ask you each to vote yes. And when you vote yes, say that you will also support community, support tiny home villages in your own districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Sasaya Guadarrama. After that will be Brooke Klein, Julie Patino, Jeff Baker, if you want to be ready.
Good evening. My name is Cecia Guadarrama, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a housing organizer with 9 to 5 Colorado. 9 to 5 is a grassroots women's organization. We work on economic justice policies. Over the past 4 or 5 years, we've been working on housing issues as our members have been facing eviction and displacement. I'm here in support of the resolution and in support of the beloved community village, and ask that you please do the right thing tonight. We believe housing is a human right, not a commodity to be exploited for profit. We believe that communities most directly impacted should be at the forefront. And we also know that communities know the best solutions that work for them. Denver and Colorado is facing a housing crisis, and as we've worked at the state legislation to address what we can on our side, I ask that the city does the right thing tonight. You cannot continue to just fix the housing crisis by giving developers tax breaks and incentives. Please do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Brooke Klein. Brooke Klein. All right, Julie Patino.
Good evening, Council. My name is Julie Patino, and I work at the Denver Foundation. I'm the Director of Basic Human Needs. I'm here tonight in support of this resolution. The Denver Foundation, for many, many years, has funded organizations in Globeville that are led by people of color. At the same time, we have also provided funding to the village community. The funding we have provided has been based on what Bayad described as supportive services. I will note that these are supportive services that, after due diligence by the village of looking at better models around the country, including Seattle, recognizing that Seattle had some issues and wanting to fill the gaps in providing services to the residents. I have experienced these residents as nothing but thoughtful, hardworking, circumspect individuals who want to be members of community. The reason that I am here tonight in support of them is because they don't have a neighborhood to show up and support them. They don't have a place to call home that's permanent. They don't have a neighborhood where they encounter people at the bus stop, et cetera.
Thank you. Next up, Jeff Baker. And then we'll end with Jerry Burton, Jesse Pierce, and Mark Marshall. Jeff Burton? Or Jeff Baker. I'm sorry. Jeff Baker? No? Jerry Burton.
Can I have 5 minutes? Hey, thank you. My name is Jerry Burton. I'm with Denver Homes Allow. I'm a U.S. veteran Marine. I understand your plight. I do. The same way the council people have done to us in the homeless community, in the poor people community. Y'all have not done your job. Y'all have not fulfilled your job. You are taking people and you're messing with their lives. You got people fighting against the police. That's the unhouse. Then you got the house people fighting against the police because y'all are dividing us. Y'all are taking each one of us, and you're taking city now. You're taking community and dividing the poor among the poor. This shit has to stop. Y'all have to account for this because this is not right what y'all doing. And then on top of that, you're pushing people around in the middle of the night. Because a lady, a resident, asked for something very simple, something that we all do, a porta potty. A porta potty for the homeless. Damn.
Thank you very much. Next up,
y'all been
next up, Jesse Paris.
That's bull.
Jesse Parrish, representative for Denver Homeless Out Loud, Black Stars Movement for Self-Defense and Positive Action Commitment for Change, and I'm on top of the ballot for at large. We are definitely in approval of this. We need more tiny home buildings, more tiny home structures, more attainable means of housing in the city. I do not like the way that Gloveville has been treated, though. We've experienced the same thing in 5 Points, Cole, Whittier, etc. You're not exempt. You're not the exception. We've all been dealing with this, all people of color in this town. We've been gentrified, displaced, and pushed out of our neighborhoods. This is exactly why we need a new council. Sweep the council like they sweep the homeless every night. Thank you.
Next up, Mark Marshall.
Good evening. My name is Mark Marshall with Urban Land Conservancy. ULC has been involved with the Tiny Homes Village since the inception. 2 years ago, we've hosted the Tiny Home Village at our property at 38th and Blake, and we are actually doing a groundbreaking now for 66 units of affordable, permanently affordable housing at that site. We are in strong support of this measure and stand by the city and ask, well, we've partnered with the city on many occasions and asked that the city stand with us on this one as well. We've seen the positive results of housing the group that is at Beloved Community, and there have been nothing but positive responses from the neighborhood, in the Cole neighborhood. We expect that to continue, and we look forward to your continued support. So thank you.
Thank you.